Good afternoon, students. This is Dr. Anshu Sharma from Government College Chaksu, and welcome back to this. I don't know if I can call it a class, but yes, we were doing Lord Byron's poem, There is a Pleasure in the Pathless Woods, and today we shall be doing the fourth stanza, which is again an extension of the second and the third stanza, where the poet is talking about the powerlessness of man versus the powerfulness of, or the extreme vastness and power of the ocean. And here in this fourth stanza, he has given certain examples of battles and wars that took place, and how it was the ocean that ultimately won. So, here there are three or four examples, three or four battles that have been mentioned. I'll take one by one. Let me just read the poem first. This passage is again of 9 lines, and the same rhyme scheme is continuing here too. That is ABA, BBC, and BCC. Okay, so let me just quickly go through the stanza. The armaments which thunder strike the walls of rock built cities, bidding nations quake, and monarchs tremble in their capitals. The oak leviathans whose huge ribs make their clay creator the vain title take of Lord of Thee, and Arbiter of War. These are thy toys, and as the snowy flake, they melt into thy yeast of waves, which mar alike the Armada's pride or spoils of Trafalgar. So, again, here, because man is known to rule, or you can say try and rule over earth, and he does so through indulging in wars and battles and creation of lot of weapons, terrible weapons of destruction. And here in the first line itself, it is referring to the armaments, which is the weapons that have been created by man and which thunder strike the walls. Now, thunder strike is a word which is derived from the lightning that takes place during a storm. So the weapons, the effect and the sound of the weapons is something like that of thunder and lightning during storms or during heavy rainfall. So when these armaments or when these weapons they strike, they seem to sound like lightning. They seem to be very quick, fast, with a lot of speed, a lot of noise, and the capacity to destroy. So, the armaments which thunder strike the walls of rock built cities. Rock built cities, again, in the previous times, nowadays, the way our homes are built, the material that is used, the way the structure is built up, it's changed over the time. But earlier, during the early times, huge rocks were used to build castles and to build homes and to build huge palaces. And this is what he is referring to. And naturally, if these buildings were made of rock, they were very strong. So he says that these armaments, they used to strike like lightning. And what did they do? They attacked the rock built cities. Rock built cities, the strong cities which had been made using big rocks, and bidding nations quake. Now, bidding nations quake, bidding means to call upon. Okay, this is what bidding means, to call. And he says, bidding nations quake. Quake means to tremble. Okay, like for example, what happens when you get an earthquake? The earth shakes, and it can destroy so many things. So that is the reason why this word has been used here, quake. So what happened? these armaments, these weapons, when they were used against these huge cities, which were very strong, they led to the huge nations, the strong nations, quake with fear. They used to tremble with fear. They used to tremble by the weapons that have been created by man himself. And monarchs trembled in their capitals. And who ruled these cities? These rock built cities, these huge palaces, these huge castles, these cities which are surrounded by huge walls made of strong rocks. Who ruled these cities? There were the kings, the monarchs. Monarchs means kings. They were the kings who ruled these cities, and when these cities were attacked by these strong, huge weapons, then these monarchs sitting within those cities used to tremble with fear. They would fear these weapons, they would fear the attack. The oak leviathans, whose huge ribs make their clay creator the vain title take of Lord of Thee and Arbiterer of War. Now, these two lines, this is again reference to the ocean, because these oak leviathans, what are these? Leviathans is again reference to a biblical monster. Again, I'll just repeat myself, because I have told you this earlier as well, that very often in English poetry a lot of references are taken from the Bible itself. Here also Leviathan is reference to a huge sea monster, and this is again a biblical reference. But here these are not the real monsters, rather these monsters are those that have been made by oak. Now, what is oak? Oak is a very big, huge, strong tree whose wood is supposed to be very strong, and this particular wood was used to make to build these huge ships that used to move on the sea. So the oak leviathans, whose huge ribs make their clay creator the vain title take of Lord of Thee. Now this is very important. The ships that have been built, earlier he had referred to 10,000s of ship that used to travel across the ocean. Again it is reference to the same implication of strength that you draw out of the hugeness, the bigness of the ship that has been created through using of very strong wood of the oak tree. And he says the huge ribs, if you have noticed, the ship has an outline of thin wood strips going on both the sides with a central strip, and on top of that carry on top of that you can say the skeleton, the wood boards are nailed onto this frame, and the huge ships are created. So this is reference to the ribs. Just like the humans, we have a skeleton within us, we have those rib cage, we have those bones on which the flesh is put, and it's the skeleton on which our body is carried basically. So this is that reference that he is giving, that these oak leviathans, whose huge ribs make their clay creator. Who's the clay creator? Now clay creator is man himself. What is man? Man basically is very weak. It is very easy to kill man. So we are just like made of clay. We are that weak. We are as weak as a clay. But we have made these huge ships which are very strong, which are very powerful. And he says that because the clay creator, because this man has created such huge things, he takes up the title of Lord of Thee. Now, Thee here is reference to the ocean, to the sea. And just because man has created such huge strong ships, has built these huge strong ships which move across the oceans, move from one place to another, the reason, that is the reason why man says that he rules over the ocean. So what is man being? Man is becoming very vain. He does not, he is actually not powerful, but just because he has made these huge ships that cross over the ocean, he takes up the title of being your lord, being your master, which is again, according to Byron, a mockery. An arbiter of war. Arbiter, somebody who decides upon war arbitrarily. There may not be a reason for a war, there may be no requirement for war, but just to fulfill one's ego, just to fulfill this desire of proving that we are very strong, we indulge in warfare, we indulge in battles in order to overpower the other person's territory or other king's territory and make it your own. So he says that we are the human beings, the man is arbiter of war, and these are thy toys. Now look at the contrast. On one hand, man feels that he is super powerful because he has created these huge ships. On the other hand, what does the ocean feel? The ocean feels that these are mere toys. They are simply toys. These huge ships are just like toys for the ocean. These are thy toys. So, what are these? These are your toys. Those things, those ships, which man feels makes, means power, which means strength, for you they are just simply toys, small toys with which you can play or break anytime that you wish to. And as the snowy flake, they melt into the yeast of waves. Now look at the rich imagery that Byron has used here. He says that these toys are just like snowy flake. What is snow? Snow is again very light, it is soft, it is gentle, and it is very light. So what is a ship when it moves on to the ocean? It looks just like a snowflake. For the ocean, the ship is not huge. For the ocean, the ship is nothing. Because if you compare the size of the ocean, if you compare the size of the sea to the size of the ship, you'll find that the ship is extremely tiny. The ship is extremely small in comparison. So he has used all these examples to highlight the fact that ocean is much, much more powerful than the things that have been created by man. And he says that these ships are just like toys, or these ships are just like snowy flakes that melt into the yeast of waves. Yeast, what is yeast? If you have noticed, if you see the rolling waves over the sea, usually they have that whitish color. The sea itself, the water itself has no color. Let me make it very clear that water does not have any color. But when you look at it from far, it appears to be blue in color. Okay? And when the waves are moving, if you see the edges of the wave, or if you see the waves, the flowing waves, you will find that they are white in color. And here the poet is comparing it to yeast. What is yeast? This is a kind of bacteria or a fungus that is used to make bread. And yeast is something that gives the softness, the lightness to bread. So he's comparing the waves to yeast. And he says that these huge ships, they simply melt into the waves, which mar alike the Armada's pride or spoils of Trafalgar. So these ships, they are brought to ruin. Mar means to spoil, to ruin, to impair. I have given the word meanings on the page itself. It's there on your screen, you can read it. So he says, what he's trying to say is that just like, a gentle snowflake, or just like a toy, or just like a frothy yeast, that water, in that the ship simply melts. The ship, the huge ships, for which the men feel very proud, the mankind feels very proud that they have created these huge massive ships. But what are they in before the sea? Nothing. They're just like toys, they're just like snowflakes, and simply they melt into the huge waves of the ocean. And he says that alike the Armada's pride. Now, here in the last line, please note that these two, I have put the meanings there. Armada was a fleet which had been sent by Philip II of Spain against England. Okay, there was a war, there was a battle, and this fleet had been sent by Philip II in 1588. Now, this is long back. It's the 16th century that is being referred to here. So, it was sent against England in 1588, but it was defeated by the British. So, the British with a very small armory with very small group of troops they had defeated this huge fleet sent by Philip II of Spain. And the second, he's talking about Trafalgar. This is in 1802 to 1805. There was a similar situation. There was a similar, fight, battle between France and England, and it had been fought under the mighty Napoleon. But again, he was outmaneuvered. He was defeated by Nelson at Cape Trafalgar. Trafalgar is the name of the place, the cape where the battle took place, and Nelson, with a small fleet of ships, he had somehow succeeded in defeating Napoleon's huge fleet of battleships. So he says that it was the ocean that was powerful, and these armadas pride, the fleet that had been sent, the number of ships that had been sent was almost 127 to 130. And English, in their attack, they sunk these ships and they scattered many, and they were destroyed by the storm of the coasts of Scotland and Ireland. So it was basically, somehow you can say, the English got lucky, and there were huge storms which destroyed these ships. So the English people won the war. The English people won the battle. So it was actually the power of the ocean. It was the storms that took place which destroyed the big ships. And spoils of Trafalgar. This is again reference to Battle of Trafalgar, which was fought between the British and Nelson. And there were 27 ships that had been sent by the French. And Nelson was also killed during this battle. But they say that the English won because, you can say, the sea breeze was in their favor, and they overpowered the French people. They overpowered the Napoleon's huge fleet of ship. But it was the ocean that supported them, you can say that. And Nelson, who was fighting for the British, he also got his mortal wound during this battle. And ultimately, therefore, somehow they were unable to bring whatever they had won during the battle. They were unable to collect it and bring it back to England. But anyways, they won the war. And who was the main hero? It was, according to Byron, it was not the English soldiers, it was not the French soldiers, it was not the Spanish armada, but it was the ocean that was the deciding factor as to which party, or you can say which country, is going to win. So it was the ocean that was the deciding factor. It was the power of the ocean that destroyed the ships like matchsticks, like pin sticks. They were destroyed, and the battle was won by the English. So you can see that by giving here in this fourth paragraph, Byron has purposely cited examples of different battles and wars, and how the deciding factor, you can say, was not only the might of the armies, not only the might of the English people, but it was also the might of the ocean that played a major role and became the deciding factor as far as which side the battle went to, which country won the battle. So you can see that in this whole passage, he has given different examples. He has given very relevant examples, and he's drawn comparison between so many different things, and he has kind of associated the ships, the mighty ships, to a toy, to a snowflake, something that just dissolves, just something that just melts into the waves of the sea and is finished, is destroyed completely. So in this passage also, Byron is again reiterating, again emphasizing the power of the ocean, the beauty of the ocean, the massive vastness of the ocean, which makes everything, which makes all, you can say, claims made by man that he is powerful, or claims made by man about his power through creation of terrible weapons, through creation of huge ships. Everything is brought to naught when they are faced by the power of the ocean. So, once again, thank you for your patient listening. I hope this passage is clear. And if you have any questions, you can always connect with me over the WhatsApp. My number is there on the WhatsApp group. Soon I'll be finishing this poem. And please go through these 4 passages that I have shared with you. And if there's any problem or if there's any issue or any point that you've not been able to understand, you can get in touch with me over my phone. Thank you once again. Good day. Bye bye.